Welcome to Monster Hunters PH. My name is Kuya Ray and I'll be your guide to the wonderful world of monsters. So get comfy and listen close as we delve into the story of the Daligmata. The Daligmata takes the form of an animal with skin covered by countless shining eyes that can only see at night. It is a cross between the Greek Argus panoptes, the siren, Philippine sigben, and a house cat. Although this Lamanlupa can be very helpful in looking for lost things, it can also be the one to steal souls from a person who's dreaming. This creature can be tamed, although with the risk of losing one's soul if the creature is not tamed properly. It is similar to the sigben, in which the creature may be tamed and used for nefarious or good-willed intentions. The Daligmata's name comes from the contraction of Dali, which means fast, and Mata, which means eyes. Hence, the Daligmata's direct translation is fast eyes or fast vision. In the Philippines, we say tabi-tabi po when encountering an unfamiliar land to ask permission from any of the possible mythological or fantastical inhabitants, often known as mga Lamanlupa, Kaibaan in Pangasinan, or Tamyaw in Waray. These are the spirits that guard our lands since ancient times and are the owners of the land before mankind ever stepped foot on God's green earth. One of these guardian spirits is the Daligmata from the Visayan culture. The Daligmata also assist in the Gudgudan ritual to locate the stolen soul of a sick person and bring them back to health. However, in some occasions, this creature itself is the one who steals the soul of a person dreaming by singing. Its song is said to be that of a melancholic lullaby and lulls its victims into a dreamless and never-ending sleep. Warning: the story presented is purely imaginary. All names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. No identification with actual persons, living or deceased, places, buildings, and products are intended or should be inferred. As a young man, Antonio had always been an avid motorcycle enthusiast. He'd take his 150 engine motorcycle down deep ravines and long curvy roads to enjoy the thrill of adventure on the weekends. But tragedy struck him one day when a blind curve spiraling downward caused him to come face to face with two large headlights. As luck would have it, Antonio was attentive enough to turn his handlebar to the side, managing to force his motorcycle into a slide. But luck wasn't entirely on his side that day. His motorcycle managed to slide between the gap of the road barrier and the ground. Antonio rolled down a 15-meter ravine, hitting branch after branch of growing saplings and tough, gravelly earth. Before he fell into unconsciousness, Antonio saw a strange cat-like creature perched upon a tree branch. His last image was that of the navy blue sky with tendrils of setting sunlight, while the cat-like creature inched ever closer. Antonio's girlfriend, Tricia, received the news of the accident at 1 in the morning of the following day. Tricia was understandably distraught, being the only family Antonio had, since her boyfriend grew up as an orphan. The company who owned the 16-wheeler truck that caused the accident vowed to foot the hospital bills for 6 months. Sadly, Antonio was in a coma with no certainty of him regaining consciousness. 3 months had passed since the accident. Tricia sat by her boyfriend's side, never wavering in her belief that he'd regain consciousness soon. But as the months passed, the doctors had lost faith that the young man would awake. In his unconscious state, that Antonio later referred to as a dream realm, Antonio was wide awake. The navy blue sky had never changed shape since the day he'd found himself in this strange place. Strangely, a creature that looked like a cross between a cat and a palm civet purred and mewed at him from a distance. It slowly sneaked closer to him as the days passed, and as it drew ever nearer, Antonio could see that its body was covered by glowing eyes. By the 5th month of Antonio's hospitalization, Tricia increasingly felt desperate. It reached a boiling point when the doctors announced that Tricia should get Antonio's affairs in order before they pulled the plug of his life support. A friend of the couple suggested calling an albulario whose specialty was helping those in a coma. Since modern medicine had failed the couple and the doctors were insisting that Tricia sign papers to end Antonio's life, Tricia was left with no choice but try something unconventional. Tricia left the hospital and spoke with an old albulario who then followed her to the hospital. The old woman brought with her an intricately carved wooden box. As they reached the hospital, the box seemed to jostle in the albulario's lap. Meanwhile, something strange was happening to Antonio. The strange cat-civet creature had begun to sing so soothingly that he'd felt he could fall asleep with every second that passed. But just as his eyes began to droop, another creature, similar to the first, started hissing from the corner of Antonio's eyes. As soon as they entered the hospital room, the albulario opened the trembling ornate wooden box. The box looked empty, but a strange presence could be felt from within. Tricia watched as the albulario sat on a chair and waited patiently by Antonio's bedside. "What's going to happen now?" asked Tricia. "Now, we wait. My Daligmata will fight the intruder. If mine wins, you get back your loved one. If it loses, we all lose," replied the albulario, ever so calm. Antonio watched as the two creatures battled, tearing at each other with sharp fangs and ripping claws. A clear winner was beginning to emerge, but Antonio could not tell which one had won. With a claw swipe, one Daligmata fell the other, and it was forced to retreat. The winner coiled itself around Antonio's legs and purred soothingly. In that moment, Antonio opened his eyes. A rush of hospital workers entered the room. Antonio only saw blurry figures around him, but he could tell the distinct sound of Tricia's voice and the smell of her perfume. He felt the drops of tears on his forearm from Tricia's tired eyes. He could also see a blurry feline slip into the ornate box, and the old albulario closed the box shut. A rush of hospital workers entered the room. Antonio only saw blurry figures around him, but he could tell the distinct sound of Tricia's voice and the smell of her perfume. He felt the drops of tears on his forearm from Tricia's tired eyes. He could also see a blurry feline slip into the ornate box, and the old albulario closed the box shut. Sadly, on that same night, a tragedy occurred. A different patient, who was also in a coma, died. Tricia and Antonio speculate that it could have been caused by the untamed Daligmata, since various doctors and nurses claim to have heard a sleepy melody the night before the incident. These creatures tend to be both sides of the same coin. In one extreme, they can be helpful guardians or household pets that help you find lost keys, some change, or even a lost soul. While on the other hand, they can be extremely capricious and steal your soul as you sleep at night with their soft voices and vocal harmonies. This has been Kuya Ray from Monster Hunters PH, now signing off. See you in our next video.